The stars looked peaceful from the observation deck of the Galactic Council station. Ambassador Susan Miller stood with her hands clasped behind her back, watching the gentle drift of ships coming and going. Humans had only been part of the Council for 15 years, and Susan still felt the weight of representing Earth to the wider galaxy. A soft chime interrupted her thoughts. The Council was gathering for an emergency session. Susan walked quickly through the curved hallways. Other ambassadors hurried alongside her, tall, willowy Altarians with their crown-like head ridges, squat, six-limbed Doraxians, and floating mist entities contained in their environmental spheres. Humans were among the more physically unassuming species in the Council, though many races regarded them with caution due to their Deathworld classification. The Council chamber was a perfect circle with seats arranged in rising tiers. At the center stood Council leader Xanthal, an ancient Civetian, whose crystalline exoskeleton glittered under the lights. The leader's voice resonated with unusual urgency. "We have received a distress signal of the highest priority," Xanthal announced. "The luminari of the Lumina system are under attack." Screens activated around the chamber, showing a recording. A luminari appeared, a slender, translucent being whose skin pulsed with gentle blue light. But the usual calm glow of their species was now erratic with fear. "This is Chief Scientist Alara of Lumina. The Void Reapers have entered our system with a harvest fleet. Our defenses have failed. They are bombing our cities. Millions are dead." The luminaries' light patterns flashed in patterns of distress. "We beg for assistance, please. They will destroy everything." The recording ended and the chamber erupted in voices. "The Void Reapers haven't attacked a Council world in over 60 cycles," said Ambassador Dorex of the Planetary Alliance. "Lumina is on the outer rim, far from our core systems," observed another voice. "The Reapers seek resources. Lumina has rich deposits of rare minerals and biological diversity," said Science Consul Vreen. Susan listened carefully. The Luminari were peaceful researchers and artists. Their planet was a center of learning with vast libraries of knowledge. And now they faced extinction. Council leader Xanthal raised all four arms for silence. "We must discuss our response. The Reapers have superior weaponry and numbers. Our peacekeeping force would take weeks to mobilize, and would be outmatched," added Defense Minister Quell, a reptilian saurian with scarred scales. "The last time we faced the Reapers, we lost 3 fleets before negotiating their withdrawal." Susan felt a chill. "Negotiated withdrawal? You mean you paid them to leave?" The Defense Minister's vertical pupils narrowed. "What would you suggest, Ambassador Miller? Most Council species evolved on gentle worlds. We lack both the technology and the instinct for large-scale conflict." Susan stood. At 5'7", she was shorter than most of the other ambassadors, but her voice carried clearly. "Earth can help." A murmur ran through the chamber. The Altarian ambassador waved his slender fingers dismissively. "Your species is new to space travel. Your fleet is small. But effective," Susan countered. "We evolved on a death world. Our entire history prepared us for survival against overwhelming odds." "The human ships are oddly designed," commented Science. Consul Vreen. "Redundant systems, heavy shielding, unusual weapon configurations." "We build for combat as well as exploration," Susan explained. "Let me contact Earth Command. We can have ships at Lumina within 3 days." The Council leader's crystalline face was unreadable. "The Luminari may not have 3 days. Then we should decide quickly," Susan said. As debate continued, Susan stepped to a private communication alcove. She placed her palm on the scanner, establishing a direct link to Earth Command. After a brief delay, the stern face of Captain Alan Hayes appeared on the screen. The Arizona desert stretched behind him through the window of his office. "Ambassador Miller," he greeted her. "Not our scheduled check-in." "Emergency situation, Captain. The luminary world is under attack by the Void Reapers. The Council is debating a response, but the luminary don't have time for debate." Hayes's expression hardened. He had fought in Earth's last wars before contact with alien life. He understood the cost of hesitation. "What are we looking at?" The Reapers are a species of conquerors. They strip planets of resources, regardless of indigenous life. They have a large fleet with advanced weapons. The Luminari have no real defenses. They're scientists, artists. They're dying, Alan. Hayes was silent for a moment. Susan knew he was calculating distances, forces, risks. The fleet can be ready in 6 hours. The Valiant is already prepared. For a training exercise, we can redirect. The Council hasn't formally requested aid, Susan warned. Hayes smiled grimly. Then we'll call it a training exercise near Luminary space. If we happen to encounter hostile forces threatening a peaceful species, well, we'll respond accordingly. Susan felt relief wash over her. I'll inform the Council of Earth's offer. We're on our way, Hayes said simply, and the connection ended. When Susan returned to her seat, the debate was growing heated. Defense Minister Quell was explaining the practical challenges of confronting the Reapers. Even if we decided to fight, which would break 50 cycles of policy, we lack the ships, the weapons, and the troops trained for such conflict, the minister stated. Susan raised her hand, and the council leader acknowledged her. Earth is willing to help, she announced. Captain Hayes of Earth Defense Fleet is preparing ships now. They can reach Lumina in 3 days. Silence fell across the chamber. Your people would fight for aliens they barely know? Asked Ambassador Dorex, his voice surprised. Susan met his gaze steadily. Throughout human history, we learned one lesson repeatedly. When good people do nothing in the face of cruelty, everyone eventually suffers. How many ships can Earth provide? Asked Defense Minister Quell. 13, Susan replied. More silence, then nervous murmuring. 13 ships against a Reaper harvest fleet? The defense minister's scales flushed dark with emotion. That's not aid, it's suicide. Susan smiled for the first time since entering the chamber. You're thinking like someone from a gentle world, Minister. 13 ships crewed by Deathworlders are more formidable than you might expect. The council leader stepped forward. Ambassador? Miller, while we appreciate Earth's offer, we must caution against rash action. The council protocols require consensus before military engagement. With respect, Leader Xanthal, Earth joined the council to be part of a community of worlds. Communities protect their own. Susan straightened her shoulders. The Luminari called for help. Earth has answered. As debate continued, Susan's communicator vibrated. A message from Captain Hayes. Fleet launching within the hour. The Valiant leads. Commander Olivia Garcia captaining. Susan kept her expression neutral, but inside she felt a surge of hope. Olivia Garcia was Earth's finest tactical mind, a veteran of pre-contact conflicts who understood battle like few others in the galaxy. On the main view screen, a new message from Lumina appeared. Cities burning, the beautiful crystalline structures of Luminari civilization crumbling under bombardment. The Luminari's natural glow was dimming across their world as lives were extinguished. Ambassador Dorex looked troubled. How can 13 ships make any difference against such destruction? Susan gazed at the images of devastation, then at the doubtful faces around her. You'll see, she said quietly. You'll see what humans can do when others cry for help. In the Earth orbit, the 13 ships of the defensive fleet broke formation and accelerated toward the edge of the solar system. At their head flew the EDF Valiant, its hull bearing the scars of previous encounters successfully navigated. In its command center, Captain Olivia Garcia studied the mission briefing, her eyes determined. Prepare for FTL jump to Lumina system, she ordered. We have people to save. The command deck of the EDF Valiant hummed with activity. Captain Olivia Garcia stood at the center, watching as her crew prepared for the upcoming battle. The ship had just completed its third faster-than-light jump, each one bringing them closer to the Luminari homeworld. Status report, Garcia said, her voice calm despite the tension in the air. Lieutenant Jack Morgan looked up from his station. His enhanced reflexes, a genetic modification common among Earth's combat specialists, allowed his fingers to dance across multiple screens at once. All systems at combat readiness, Captain. The other 12 ships report the same. He paused. We're receiving updated intelligence from Lumina. It's not good. Garcia nodded. On screen. The main display showed a beautiful blue-green planet, but dark wounds scarred its surface. Massive ships hovered in orbit. The Void Reaper's harvest. Fleet. Even from this distance, they could see energy beams cutting into the planet's crust. They're stripping the planet's resources, said Commander Eric Peters from the weapons station. Those are mining beams, not just weapons. Dr. Kimberly Washington, the ship's xenobiologist, frowned at the readings. The luminari are bioluminescent. Their cities literally glow with life. Those dark patches represent millions of deaths. Garcia's expression hardened. She had seen war before, fought in Earth's last conflicts before they joined the stars. But this wasn't war. It was extermination. Time to arrival? She asked. 6 hours, Captain, answered Navigator Ben Coleman. Garcia turned to face the crew. Then we have 6 hours to prepare. Commander Peters, I want weapon scenarios for every possible engagement. Dr. Washington, everything you have on Luminari and Reaper biology. I want to know their weaknesses. Lieutenant Morgan, coordinate with the strike teams. When we arrive, we hit them hard and fast. As the crew rushed to their tasks, the door to the command deck slid open. A tall, tentacled figure entered, moving with careful steps in the ship's artificial gravity. Diplomat Zorax, Garcia acknowledged. You should be in your quarters during pre-combat preparations. The Mercurian diplomat's 6 eyes blinked in sequence. Forgive me, Captain, but I've never witnessed humans preparing for battle. The Council assigned me to observe and report. Garcia gestured for Zorax to stay out of the way. Just don't interfere. My people know what they're doing. Chief Engineer Samuel Ross joined them, his uniform stained with the marks of his work. Captain, I've modified our shield generators. They should absorb some of the energy from Reaper weapons. Not enough to make us invulnerable, but it might surprise them. Good work, Sam. Garcia turned back to the tactical display. What do we know about Reaper battle formations? Commander Peters brought up historical data. They rely on overwhelming force. Most species surrender or retreat quickly. They've never encountered significant resistance. Then they've never met humans, Garcia said. In the ship's training area, Lieutenant Jack Morgan briefed the strike teams. 20 men and women in combat armor listened intently. Lumina has approximately 80% of Earth's gravity. That gives us an advantage. We'll be faster, stronger. The atmosphere is breathable but has higher oxygen content, so watch your exertion levels. You'll tire quickly if you're not careful. A young soldier raised her hand. Sir, what about the Luminari? How do we identify friendlies? Morgan activated a hologram showing the translucent, glowing aliens. They're peaceful researchers and artists. No natural weapons. Their skin glows, blue in calm states, yellow when excited or afraid. They'll recognize our ships as different from the Reapers. We've transmitted human images ahead of our arrival. Our primary mission? Asked Sergeant Kelly Brown. Ground support, Morgan replied. The Luminari have retreated to their last major city. It's protected by a failing energy shield. We'll deploy to defend the shield generators while Captain Garcia deals with the Reaper fleet in orbit. In the science lab, Dr. Washington studied Luminari biology with fascination. Their cellular structure allowed them to convert energy into light, a type of bioluminescence far more advanced than anything on Earth. She wondered if this biological feature might somehow be useful. The ship's intercom activated. All personnel. This is Captain Garcia. We've received new information. The Luminari resistance is led by an individual named Stella, apparently a name they chose because it resembles our word for star. Stella has managed to maintain communication despite the Reaper jamming technology. We now have direct contact with the ground forces. In her quarters, Dr. Washington's eyes widened with sudden inspiration. She rushed to the communication panel. Captain, I need to speak with this Stella immediately. I have an idea. Meanwhile, in the engineering section, Chief Engineer Ross and his team worked feverishly. The Valiant was a marvel of human engineering, designed to continue functioning, even when severely damaged. Unlike the sleek, efficient ships of most Council races, human vessels contained redundant systems, backup generators, and manual overrides for almost everything. They built these beauties expecting them to take a beating, Ross explained to a curious Zorax who had wandered into engineering. Most ships in the galaxy are built never to be damaged at all. Zorax's tentacles waved in confusion. That seems more logical. Why build a ship expecting it to be damaged? Ross laughed. Because humans know that in real combat everything gets damaged. The winner isn't the one with the prettiest ship, it's the one still flying at the end. On the command deck, Garcia reviewed the battle plans with her officers. The Reapers have 32 ships to our 13, Commander Peters noted. Standard tactics would suggest we're outmatched. Garcia smiled slightly. Standard tactics assume standard thinking, Commander. The Reapers expect their targets to think like prey. We don't. What's our approach? Asked Navigator Coleman. Garcia pointed to Lumina's moon. We'll use this for gravitational assistance. The Reapers have arranged their fleet to maximize their resource extraction efficiency, not for defense. We'll divide our forces. The Valiant and 4 ships will engage their command vessels directly, while the rest of our fleet targets their harvesters. That's still 6 ships against their main fleet, Peters said. Quality over quantity, Commander. And we have another advantage. They've never fought humans before. They don't know what we're capable of. As the Valiant approached the Lumina system, Diplomat Zorax watched the humans with growing fascination. There was none of the fear he expected. Instead, he saw focus, determination, and something else, an emotion he couldn't quite identify. Your people seem almost too eager, Zorax observed to Garcia. Don't they understand the danger? Garcia checked her weapons, a habit from her years in ground combat before joining the fleet. We understand danger better than most, Diplomat. Earth spent thousands of years trying to kill us. Extreme weather, natural disasters, predators, disease. Then we spent thousands more years fighting each other. We know exactly what we're facing. Then why do this for aliens you barely know? Garcia's eyes met the Mercurians. Because someone should. Because the strong protect the weak. Because if we don't stand against cruelty when we see it, we become part of it. The navigator's voice interrupted them. Captain, we're approaching the Lumina system. Reaper fleet detected. Garcia moved to her command chair. Battle stations. All hands prepare for combat. Stealth approach until my mark. The 13 ships of Earth's fleet moved silently toward the unsuspecting Reapers, weapons hot and crews ready. Humans were about to show the galaxy what Deathworlders could do. Send one message to all ships, Garcia ordered. Tell them, remember Earth, remember what we fight for. The Valiant led the fleet forward, toward a battle that would change the understanding of humans throughout the galaxy. The Void Reaper harvester ship cut into Lumina's crust, its energy beams extracting valuable minerals with no regard for the life forms that called the planet home. On its command deck, Fleet Commander Vexthar watched the operation with cold satisfaction. His gray, chitinous armor reflected the dim light as he moved between stations. Extraction rate is optimal, reported a subordinate. Resistance has been contained to the central city. Vexthar nodded. The Luminari had been easy prey, just as expected. Their technology was advanced but entirely peaceful. They had created art, music, and great libraries of knowledge, but nothing that could stop the Reapers. How long until the shield around their last city fails? He asked. Estimated 12 hours, Commander. Vexthar was about to respond when alarms blared across the command deck. What is happening? He demanded. Unknown ships entering the system, the sensor operator reported, confusion in his voice. They're moving fast. Trajectories don't match any known species patterns. Show me, ordered Vexthar. The screen displayed 13 ships approaching at high speed. They were unlike anything in the Reaper database, blocky, utilitarian, with obvious weapon mounts and heavy armor plating. They're not broadcasting identification, said the communications officer. Vexthar felt the first stirring of concern. Scan their technology level. Before the order could be carried out, the largest of the unknown ships suddenly accelerated to attack speed. Without warning, without demands or threats, it opened fire. The blast struck the main harvester ship with pinpoint accuracy, targeting its primary energy core. The massive harvester, pride of the Reaper fleet, erupted into flames. We're under, Attack! Shouted the tactical officer. Multiple impacts. The harvester is critically damaged. Vexithar stared in disbelief. No one attacked the Reapers. No one dared. Open a channel to the attacking vessels, he ordered. The screen flickered, and Vexithar found himself looking at a human female. Her dark hair was pulled back tightly, her expression calm despite the battle raging around her. This is Captain Olivia Garcia of the Earth Defense Fleet, she said. You are attacking a protected species under Galactic Council law. Withdraw, immediately. Vexithar studied this new enemy. Earth? I do not know this world. His second-in-command leaned closer. It's classified as Deathworld 7 in the Galactic Registry. Their species only recently achieved space travel. Vexithar laughed. Deathworlders or not, they were clearly new to the galactic stage. You have interrupted a legitimate resource acquisition. Captain, we have conquered 32 systems before meeting your kind. You have 13 ships. Leave now and perhaps we'll ignore your homeworld. For a time. Garcia's expression didn't change. She simply cut the transmission. Vexithar turned to his tactical officer. Target their largest vessel. Show them what happens when they challenge the Void Reapers. But the human ships were already moving again, splitting into smaller groups with a coordination that surprised the Reaper commander. They didn't fight like any species he had encountered before. On the Valiant, Captain Garcia turned to Commander Peters. They took the bait, launched strike teams to the surface. Combat Protocol Zeta. Peters nodded and transmitted the orders. Within moments, dropships launched from the human vessels, streaking toward Lumina's surface. Lieutenant Jack Morgan led the first team, his pod hurtling through the atmosphere. The high oxygen content created spectacular flames around the heat shields. Prending, in 30 seconds, he told his squad. Remember your training. Lumina's gravity will make you faster and stronger, but don't get cocky. The pods crashed through the upper layers of a dense forest, their retro-thrusters activating at the last moment. Morgan was the first out, rifle ready, scanning for threats. The forest around them glowed with bioluminescent plant life, casting everything in soft blue light. Move out, he ordered. Rendezvous point is 3 kilometers north. The Luminari resistance will meet us there. As the strike teams made their way through the glowing forest, the battle in orbit intensified. The Reapers had reorganized, bringing their weapons to bear on the human fleet. But Garcia had expected this. Evasive pattern Delta, she ordered. Draw their fire away from the planet. The human ships moved with unpredictable patterns, seeming almost erratic to Reaper targeting systems. When Reaper energy weapons did connect, something unexpected happened. The human shields flared but grew stronger, absorbing the energy. In engineering, Chief Ross monitored the shield modifications with satisfaction. It's working, Captain, he reported over the comm. Their weapons are actually charging our systems. We can't take direct hits indefinitely, but glancing blows are actually helping us. On the Reaper command ship, Vexithar watched with growing concern as his fleet struggled to land effective hits. What is happening? He demanded. Why can't we destroy them? Their movement patterns don't follow logical sequences, reported the tactical officer. And their shields are somehow adapting to our weapons. Impossible, Vexithar snarled. No species has such technology. His second-in-command studied the sensor readings more carefully. Commander, I'm detecting something strange. Their ships are taking damage, but they're not losing functionality. It's as if they're designed to continue operating while damaged. On the surface, Morgan's team reached the rendezvous point. Waiting for them was a group of Luminari, their translucent bodies glowing with anxious yellow light. One stepped forward, taller than the others. I am Stella, she said in careful galactic standard. You are the humans who answered our call. Morgan nodded. Lieutenant Jack Morgan, Earth Defense Fleet. We're here to help defend your shield generators. Stella's glow shifted slightly toward blue. You are very different from what we expected. The Council species avoid conflict. They told us no help would come in time. We're not like most Council species, Morgan replied. Now show us what we're defending. Stella led them to a massive crystal structure nestled in a valley. Energy pulsed through it, feeding the shield that protected the last luminary city. Our final shield generator, Stella explained. If it falls, our people fall. Morgan studied the approaches, identifying defensive positions. We'll hold this position, but we need more than defense. Dr. Washington believes your bioluminescence might be a weapon against the Reapers. Stella's glow brightened with surprise. Our light? A weapon? She thinks certain frequencies might affect their optical systems. Can you control your light output precisely? The Luminari looked at each other, their glow shifting to a thoughtful purple. Yes, Stella finally said. We use light patterns for art, communication, even data storage, but we never considered it as a weapon. Morgan smiled grimly. Sometimes the greatest strength is the one you never thought to use. In orbit, the battle had reached a stalemate. The human ships had destroyed 3 Reaper vessels while losing one of their own, but the Reapers still outnumbered them significantly. On the Valiant's command deck, Garcia received Morgan's transmission from the surface. Dr. Washington, what's the status of your light weapon theory? Washington looked up from her workstation. The Luminari can produce light frequencies that should overload Reaper visual receptors. If we can get them to coordinate a planet-wide flash, it could temporarily blind their ground forces and even affect their ships in low orbit. Garcia nodded. Make it happen. Diplomat Zorax, who had remained quietly observing until now, stepped forward. Captain, may I ask a question? When Garcia nodded, the Mercurian continued. Your tactics are unlike anything I've ever seen. You're fighting as if you've done this before. Garcia's eyes never left the tactical display. Humans have been fighting for our entire history, diplomat. Not just against nature, but against each other. Everything the Reapers are doing, we've seen before in our own wars. She pointed to the Reaper formations. They rely on overwhelming force against weaker opponents. They've never faced an enemy who studied warfare as an art form for thousands of years. Zorax's tentacles twisted in surprise. You studied warfare? We mastered it, Garcia replied. And then we learned to use it only when necessary, like now. She turned back to the communications officer. Send the signal to Lieutenant Morgan. It's time to show the Reapers what happens when they prey on the wrong world. Lieutenant Morgan crouched behind a crystal formation, watching as Reaper ground forces approached the shield generator. The aliens moved with mechanical precision, their armor gleaming dully in the bioluminescent light of the forest. Everyone, in position, he said quietly into his comm unit. Around him, human soldiers readied their weapons. The plan was simple but required perfect timing. Stella and 50 other Luminari had gathered inside the shield generator complex. They were preparing for something never attempted before, a synchronized light pulse at exactly the frequency Dr. Washington had calculated would overwhelm Reaper optical systems. Strike teams report ready, came Garcia's voice through the comm. Orbital maneuver commencing, execute in 30 seconds. Morgan checked his weapon one last time. Remember, after the flash, we have approximately 20 seconds while they're disoriented. Make them count. In orbit, the Valiant executed a daring maneuver, diving toward Lumina's atmosphere. 3 other human ships followed, while the rest engaged the Reaper fleet from behind Lumina's moon. The sudden split of forces confused the Reapers. What are they doing? Vexthar demanded, watching the human ship's unexpected movement. No rational combat strategy includes diving toward a planetary atmosphere during battle. His tactical officer had no answer. Human tactics continued to defy Reaper prediction algorithms. On the Valiant's bridge, Garcia watched the countdown. 5 seconds to atmospheric boundary. All hands brace for turbulence. The massive ship shuddered as it hit the upper atmosphere, creating a streak of fire visible across half the planet. The 3 ships following did the same, their trajectories forming a perfect arc around the main luminary city. Now, Garcia ordered. On the surface, Stella received the signal. She turned to her fellow luminary. It is time. Focus your light, as we practiced. Think of our homes, our families, all we've lost. Channel that energy into the pulse. The luminary began to glow brighter, their natural bioluminescence intensifying. What started as a soft blue light quickly grew to blinding brightness. Inside the crystal structure of the shield generator, their light was amplified and focused. Morgan shielded his eyes. Even with protective gear, the light was intense. He could only imagine what it would do to the unprotected Reaper forces. Single pulse of pure white light erupted from the generator, expanding outward in a wave that covered the entire region. Simultaneously, similar pulses erupted from luminary groups across the planet, coordinated by the human fleet. The effect was immediate. The advancing Reaper ground forces stumbled, their optical sensors overloaded, their coordinated movement dissolved into chaos. "Now!" Morgan shouted, leading his team forward. The human soldiers moved with practiced efficiency, taking advantage of Lumina's lower gravity to leap incredible distances. They fell upon the disoriented Reapers like predators, striking with precision and speed that stunned the aliens. In orbit, the light pulse reflected off Lumina's atmosphere, creating a secondary effect that the human ships had anticipated. The Reaper vessels in low orbit suffered sensor disruptions, giving the human fleet the opening they needed. "All ships target their command vessel," Garcia ordered. "Everything we have." The combined firepower of 8 human ships converged on Vexthar's command ship. Their weapons had been calibrated based on data gathered throughout the battle, targeting weaknesses identified by Earth's combat AI. On the Reaper command deck, alarms blared as systems failed. "Multiple impacts," shouted the tactical officer. "Shields failing. We've lost engines 2 and 3. Vexathar gripped his command console as the ship shuddered around him. "Return fire, target their flagship." But the human ships were already changing position, using Lumina's gravity to slingshot around the planet in patterns no Reaper targeting system could predict. On the surface, Morgan's team had secured the shield generator. Reaper forces were in retreat, their coordination shattered by the light pulse and the unexpected ferocity of human combat tactics. Stella approached Morgan, her body glowing blue once more. "Your plan worked. I never imagined our light could be a weapon." Morgan reloaded his weapon, eyes scanning for any remaining threats. "Sometimes our greatest strengths are the ones we never recognized. Your people created beauty. We showed you how to use it for protection." Stella's glow shifted to a curious purple. "Your species frightens me, Lieutenant Morgan. You understand violence in ways we never could." Morgan's expression softened. "We understand it so we can end it when necessary. Humans don't fight because we love violence. We fight because sometimes it's the only way to protect what matters." In orbit, the battle had turned decisively. 4 more Reaper ships had been disabled, and the rest were regrouping, clearly preparing to retreat. On the Valiant's bridge, Garcia received the report from the surface. "Shield generator secure, Reaper ground forces retreating." Garcia nodded. "Well done, Lieutenant Morgan. Maintain position. We're finishing things up here." Diplomat Zorax had remained on the bridge throughout the battle, his tentacles occasionally trembling when the ship took hits. Now he moved closer to Garcia, his voice quiet with awe. "I've never seen anything like this. The Council's peacekeeping fleet would have never attempted such tactics." Garcia allowed herself a small smile. "That's why we succeeded where they would have failed. The Reapers expected fear, hesitation, predictable responses. We gave them none of those things." A transmission cut through their conversation. "Captain Garcia." It was Vexthar, his image flickering on the screen. The Reaper commander's armor was damaged and smoke filled the background of his bridge. "Commander Vexthar," Garcia acknowledged coldly. "You have damaged my fleet severely. This was unexpected." The alien's voice carried something new. Respect, tinged with fear. "What are your terms?" "My terms are simple. You will leave this system immediately. You will never return. And you will spread word to all Reaper fleets that Lumina and all Council worlds are under Earth's protection." Vexthar was silent for a moment. "You are few and we are many. Today you surprised us, but—" Garcia cut him off. "Let me be clear. Commander, today you faced 13 ships. Earth has more, many more. We held back because this was our first encounter with your kind. There won't be a second warning. The threat hung in the air between them. Finally, Vexthar nodded. We will withdraw, but the galaxy should know what you are, humans. You call us predators, but you are something far more dangerous. The transmission ended. On the tactical display, the remaining Reaper ships began moving away from Lumina, limping toward the system's edge. Chief Engineer Ross entered the bridge, his uniform stained with coolant fluid from emergency repairs. We took a beating, Captain, but nothing we can't fix. Garcia nodded. Casualties? 12 injured aboard the Valiant. The Princeton lost 15 when their port section was breached. No losses among Morgan's ground teams. It was a remarkably low casualty count for such a fierce battle. Garcia felt relief wash over her, though she kept her expression professional. Begin recovery operations. I want all ground teams back aboard within 3 hours, and contact Ambassador Miller. The Council should know what happened here. As the human fleet regrouped, luminary ships began to emerge from hiding places around the system. Their cities started to glow again as power was restored. The last Reaper ships disappeared into faster-than-light travel, fleeing the system they had expected to conquer easily. Stella stood with Morgan, watching as dropships prepared to take the human soldiers back to their fleet. How do we thank you for what you've done, she asked. Morgan looked at the bioluminescent city in the distance, its light growing stronger by the minute. Just rebuild, create your art, keep adding beauty to the galaxy. He smiled as he boarded the dropship. That's what we fight for. 1 month after the Battle of Lumina, the Galactic Council chamber looked very different. The curved walls now displayed images of the planet's recovery, glowing cities rebuilt, forests healing, and luminary children playing in safety. But the most significant change was in how the council members looked at the human delegation. Ambassador Susan Miller stood at the center of the chamber, flanked by Captain Olivia Garcia and Lieutenant Jack Morgan. All three wore formal Earth, Defense Fleet uniforms, the silver and blue fabric standing out among the colorful garments of other species. Council Leader Xanthal's crystalline body glittered as they addressed the chamber. We are gathered today to formally recognize the actions of Earth in defense of Lumina. What was expected to be a tragedy has instead become a story of courage and hope. The leader turned to face Susan. Ambassador Miller, when you told us your 13 ships would defend Lumina, many of us doubted. We were wrong. Susan nodded respectfully but said nothing. The time for words had been before the battle. Now the results spoke for themselves. Defense Minister Quell, who had been most vocal in his skepticism, stepped forward. The defense of Lumina was unlike anything in recent council history. Not since the formation of our alliance has any species taken such direct action against an aggressor. The reptilian minister's scales flushed with emotion. I admit that I questioned the wisdom of Earth's response. I believed 13 ships against a Reaper harvest fleet was suicide. Instead, it was the most effective military action I have witnessed in my lifetime. Captain Garcia kept her posture perfect, her expression neutral despite the praise. Lieutenant Morgan, standing slightly behind her, allowed himself a small smile. Diplomat Zorax moved into the center of the chamber. I was present during the battle. I observed the humans firsthand. The Mercurians' tentacles moved in patterns that indicated deep respect. What I witnessed challenges many of our assumptions about conflict and peace. Images appeared on the Yalm chamber walls, the Valiant diving into Lumina's atmosphere, human strike teams defending the shield generator, the coordinated light pulse that turned the tide of battle. Humans fight differently, Zorax continued. They do not follow predictable patterns. They use creativity, adaptation, and a unique understanding of conflict that comes from their evolution on a death world. A new figure entered the council chamber, a luminary whose light pulsed with vibrant blue and gold. Stella had been chosen to represent her people at this meeting. The humans did more than save our world, she said, her voice soft but carrying clearly. They showed us how to defend ourselves, They taught us that peace is not merely the absence of violence, but something that sometimes must be protected through action. Stella's glow shifted to include patterns of purple and white, colors of formal gratitude in luminary culture. We owe our continued existence to Earth. The humans answered when no one else would or could. Council leader Xanthal raised all 4 arms for attention. In light of these events, the Council proposes 2 resolutions. First, that Earth be granted a permanent position on the Defense Committee, with Captain Garcia as their representative. Susan exchanged a surprised glance with Garcia. This was unexpected. The Defense Committee had traditionally been dominated by older species. Second, continued Xanthal, we propose the creation of a new response protocol for distress calls. When any Council world faces aggression, Earth will be notified immediately, in parallel with the Council itself. The chamber filled with sounds of agreement. Even those species most wary of humans nodded their approval. When the formal ceremony ended, Susan, Garcia, and Morgan moved to a quieter area of the station. Through the viewport, they could see Earth ships docked alongside alien vessels, a sight that would have seemed impossible just years ago. Quite a change from a month ago, Susan observed. Now they can't praise us enough. Garcia removed her formal cap, allowing herself to relax slightly. They're scared. The Reapers were a monster they feared for generations. We defeated that monster in a single battle. Now they fear us instead? Morgan asked. Garcia shook her head. They respect us. There's a difference. Fear makes you hide. Respect makes you listen. As they spoke, Stella approached with diplomat Zorax. The luminary's glow had shifted to comfortable blue with hints of curious purple. I have a question, if I may, Stella said. Something I have wondered since watching you fight. Garcia nodded. Of course. Your species evolved on a world that tried to kill you. You developed warfare to a terrible art. You could conquer rather than protect. Why don't you? The 3 humans exchanged glances. It was Susan who answered. We tried that approach. Long ago. For thousands of years, humans fought each other for land, resources, power. We nearly destroyed ourselves more than once. She looked out at the stars. We learned, slowly and painfully, that conquest brings only temporary gain, while cooperation builds lasting strength. Zorax's tentacles moved thoughtfully. Yet you maintain your military capabilities. You build ships designed for combat. Because the galaxy isn't always safe, Garcia said. As Lumina discovered, we hope for peace but prepare for threats. It's a balance. A balance many council species never needed to find, Zorax observed. Most evolved on worlds without predators, extreme weather, or natural disasters. Conflict was not part of their development. Morgan smiled. Then perhaps that's why we're here. Everyone brings different gifts to the council. Some bring art, science, philosophy. Earth brings protection. Later that evening, in her temporary quarters on the station, Garcia received a transmission from Earth Command. Captain Alan Hayes appeared on the screen, the Arizona desert visible behind him as always. Congratulations, Captain. The council ceremony went well? Garcia nodded. Better than expected. They're talking about joint training programs, defensive pacts. It seems, defeating the Reapers opened many doors. Hayes smiled slightly. And how is our luminary friend? Stella, curious about everything human. She's requested permission to visit Earth as a cultural ambassador. Granted, Hayes said, though she'll find our gravity uncomfortable. Garcia looked at the report in her hand. Sir, intelligence suggests the Reapers are spreading word about us throughout their territory. They're calling us the monsters who think themselves heroes. Hayes considered this. An interesting perspective. Do you think they'll try for revenge? Eventually, perhaps but not soon. They'll be cautious about facing us again. Good, that gives us time to strengthen our position in the council, create better defensive networks. Hayes paused. You know, when we first contacted alien life, many on Earth feared we'd find only enemies among the stars. Garcia nodded. Instead, We found people who needed protection, people worth protecting. After the transmission ended, Garcia stood at her viewport watching as a luminary ship prepared to depart. Its hull glowed with bioluminescent patterns, a new design created after the battle. Garcia realized it was a stylized image of Earth, rendered in living light. Somewhere in deep space, the remnants of the Reaper fleet regrouped. Commander Vexthar stood before his superiors, explaining their defeat. These humans fight like nothing we've encountered. They don't follow logical patterns. They're unpredictable, adaptable. Are they a threat to our dominance? Asked the Reaper High Command. Vexthar considered carefully. They are dangerous only when provoked. They fight to protect, not to conquer. I recommend we avoid Earth-protected systems. The High Command did not like this answer, but they respected Vexthar's experience. Very well. Mark these systems to be avoided. We will find easier targets. Back on the council station, Stella joined Garcia at the viewport. Together they watched ships coming and going. Many species, many worlds, working together. My people are creating a new light pattern, Stella said. A special glow that tells the story of Earth coming to our aid. Future generations will learn it first. Garcia smiled. And what does this pattern say? Stella's body glowed with gentle blue light, forming complex patterns. It says, when darkness threatens, look to the Deathworlders. Those who know struggle best understand the value of peace. The human captain nodded, watching the stars. Earth had found its place in the galaxy, not as conquerors, but as protectors, ready to respond whenever aliens cried for help.